give you all of the social media elements. And if you call in, he'll take your questions if you have it or comment, and you can share. And we get this hour goes very quickly, but we got a lot of things that we want to talk about this evening. And for those of you who are here and consistently with us, I want to thank you so much for sharing your time with us and tuning in. And I want you to know that you are a real encouragement to what we're attempting to do. Dr. Thompson.
Well, Dr. Warren, just want to say thank you so much for allowing us to be here today. I had a few technical difficulties as we came in, but I believe that we are back live and in living color, doing what we do. Tonight, lots of things are going on around the nation, but we are preparing for an election, and many offices are up for grabs. We just heard that Mitch McConnell's sister is going to run for his seat now, and so no, Lindsey Graham.
Lindsey Graham, right?
Lindsey Graham,
right.
Sister is going to be running for a seat and trying to hold the Republican stronghold that is going to be taking place in the Senate as well as in the House. But I believe that there are going to be some expectations and some surprises if we continue to push forward.
Yes, there will be. And, you know, Dr. Thompson, before we jump into the politics, I would like to start by acknowledging what happened today as the bodies of those 4 additional young people were received at Dover Air Force Base that were killed over in the Iranian conflict. They're calling it a conflict. We're calling it a war. And the most disturbing thing is that their deaths bring to 18 the total number of American soldiers that have died. Doesn't even talk about how many people have been injured. But to see all 18 of those pictures of those young people, one was as young as 19, and their lives are cut short. And why? Not for democracy, not to set anyone free, but for the benefit of an ego and the price of oil. And it is so tragic a situation. Our hearts goes out to the families. You know, the last poets used to say in their song that it's all right to die for a cause, but not just because. And these deaths were just because in terms of where they were. And then 4 hours after this transfer, the president is back, you know, with the threats and everything. This war effort has expanded. In terms of now in the Red Sea, there were 2 tankers hit today, and that's quite a distance from the Strait of Hormuz. And you know, the Iran is continuing to flex their muscles about all hell's gonna break loose, and the president's continuing to make these statements about what we're going to do to them. And I think, from the standpoint of most American people, to not go further with the loss of life in this, you know, it's going to sound tough, but if you're going to do something, just go ahead and do it and get it done, and stop messing around with their have drones flying in, hitting our neighbors, our allies, and the whole idea is to try to dissolve that relationship. But the worst thing in all of this is the word that came out today that Trump is trying to enter into an agreement to give Saudi Arabia nuclear weapons. And that is a scenario that I no longer look at Trump, but I look at the Senate, and I look at the House of Representatives, and I look at the oath of office that's in the Constitution, where they swore to protect and defend this nation. And so what we see is all right for Israel to have nuclear weapons because we made sure they were armed some time ago. And a lot of people say this is a hypocrisy. But we've also seen in the case of India and Pakistan what happens when you have a country divided and both elements have nuclear weapons. And while they might be over there with wind currents and all the things that take place, radioactivity, any kind of nuclear explosion has global implications for all of us. And so we have some people who are smarter than the president in the House and the Senate. They're not mentally impaired other than by blind ambition and cowardice in terms of not taking any actions. and they have the capacity to do something to stop this man from the mission that he's on. And no matter what he seems to do, they seem to be complacent to just sit and let it happen. I've never seen anything like it. And the American people, you are going to have to be the ones to get to the ballot boxes, to block all of the efforts to stop the election, all of the voter things that want to change how your name has to appear and your ID, everything that he's doing with this legislation that he's proposing is to hamper uh, the November election, which is about 4 months away. September, October, now 3 months away, August, September, October, November. And everything that he's doing is to create an environment where he can send in federal troops and grab up the ballots, if you will, take control of the election results, because there's some ambiguity in the Constitution, even though the states have the right to conduct elections, and it spells that out in the Constitution. And we don't need to be in a battle with him over trying to get ballots back. We need to vote in such overwhelming numbers that it's just impossible for him to even think that there was anything wrong with the election. And so this week, Dr. Thompson, I've started a campaign in the Voice and Viewpoint. Register voter registration now. I went out to the Register of Voters and picked up a stack of registration cards. You can come to the Voice and Viewpoint and fill out one, get one. If you don't want to take it, we'll turn them in for you where we're permitted to do so. And we need to get involved and get ready. We don't need to wait till Labor Day. We don't need to wait for these speeches. We need to get registered. And we don't need to wait to see who we're going to vote for. We need to get registered and be prepared to vote, because if we don't, life as we know it is going to cease to exist. And the same people who never vote but always complain and want you to come and do something for them, it's going to be too late. So I just wanted to put that out there right now, because it's tied to the deaths. We can have more deaths. And even though we got a lot of things on our agenda, nothing is more disturbing than the loss of these additional lives so needlessly in a situation that shouldn't take place.
Well, Dr. Warren, one of the things I want to ask is, we always talk about register to vote, register to vote, register to vote. How do we activate those that have been registered but not voting? You know what I'm saying? Should our campaign be just on register to vote, or reactivation of people that are registered but they're not voting?
Well, here's the scenario. Your name is on the rolls. They haven't done a purge here. They try to purge people who haven't voted, especially in the South, because they're trying to get rid of names and hold it down. If you go to vote and they can't find your name, you have the right to vote a provisional ballot. And the provisional ballot can verify who you are, where you live. And after all of the checking is done, and those are the last ballots that we count, then your vote can be counted. And so because you have enough time right now, if you want to, check with the Register of Voters. Come October, they're going to mail out ballots to everyone that's on the rolls, and you're going to fill out the ballot, and you can track it. You got to sign it with your name and send it in, drop it in the mail. We're being told not to take them to the post office, because that's going to be delayed in terms of them processing. But there are drop boxes all over the community. Every library, there are drop boxes every place. And the papers, the ballots are constantly being picked up. And so we need to get involved. And if you're homeless, you can still vote. I mentioned all these things in editorial this week. There's just no reason to make an excuse that you can't do it.
Well, and one of the things about it is simply this, is that we have a lot of people that need to register to vote. They've moved, they've done things. So we definitely need to focus on registration. But I really am trying to see how we go after the ones that, I kind of want to know why you're not voting, being that in the state that we're in now. What do you want to see? What will motivate you to vote? Because at the end of the day, a nuclear bomb motivates me right away. You know what I'm saying? I don't care if it's in Iraq, Iran, or whatever. The nuclear fallback, the radiation
Yes.
ultimately will come to the United States, and it will have a great effect on us all. So the one thing we don't want to see is a nuclear war. You know what
No.
I'm saying? And then, let's just be honest. Why are we still playing with Iran if we're such this superpower? Why are we still playing with Iran, and why is Iran still able to attack with precision if we're supposed to have got them in check, and this was supposed to be a 3-week war?
Yeah, now we're going into the fourth month of this war. The other day, the Secretary of Defense was asking for, acknowledged that the war has cost $37.5 billion. That's more than enough money, Dr. Thompson, to have funded, daycare, food programs, health care, housing, all kinds of things that the dose people were cutting and eliminating under the guise of waste without any hard reason for the impact that all of this stuff is having on people. And the folks that they've cut out of areas like agriculture, the people who oversee the inspectors of the food, and the numbers are up. The people that they've cut from Health and Human Services and CDC, and now we have more measles cases than I don't know when we over 24,000, and the numbers are growing. The dismantling of it, the withdrawal of our membership from the World Health Organization, and so all of these things are being done at the same time, almost with a plan for destruction. We got to destroy the government as it exists, and so that we can rebuild it in the image of Trump. And Trump is just a figurehead because the people behind him are the ones who have plans to try to continue this once he's gone.
Mhm.
That's the problem. So we got a big job ahead of us.
So this is one of the things that we're breaking certain things down, and I think that one of the conversations, Dr. Warren, we should start having is the systematic dismantling of America, because right now, when they say the CDC says anything, you just kind of look at them like, what does the CDC know? They're not part of the World Health Organization. They're changing things left and right. We have this big listeria breakout with the lettuce, and they still say, oh, you're good if you're in this state, but you're not good in other states. All of the different things that makes the United States vulnerable is things that Donald Trump and his minions are literally dismantling to make us more of a victim, and literally setting us up for failure.
Well,
Let me just say this. We were a country that said measles didn't exist. And in less than 2 years, we now are off that list.
Well, it goes so much deeper than that, Dr. Thompson. It's deeper than that because what we have happening is we have a scenario where there's no longer truth being told in terms of things that are going on. Um, the price of meats are up, the price of gas is up, the price of rent is up, the vegetables are not safe, if you will. Um, and cost of living is up. Plus, the people who support the Trump mentality are becoming more and more bold with their overt racism and the attacks on folks, like the scenario we have with the death of the young man in Mississippi, and the indifference to people trying to find out what really took place. We are not even as well off as we were when we were in the pandemic, because in the pandemic, we did get some relief and some help once Biden became president, and it made a difference. We did have some outpouring of concern when George Floyd was murdered, and it made a difference. But now the Justice Department has been compromised. The director of intelligence is a Trump yes man. Um, the guy who played a role in securing models for Jeffrey Epstein. And he was just on CNN talking about the experience. He was found dead yesterday, and we're trying to find out what did he die from. So there are a lot of things going on, a lot of moving parts. We have an economy that's slowing down. The people are not paying their bills as timely as they did before. Businesses are hurting. And the only person that's doing well in all of this is Donald Trump, who so far has made over $2 billion in just the first 2 years of his presidency, violating the emolument clause and all the things that go there. And now they'll be talking about giving nuclear weapons to Saudi Arabia, I guess in return for the billions of dollars that they've given to his son or his son-in-law in terms of investments, is just it's really grounds for impeachment. It's grounds for impeachment that can't take place as long as the Senate is like it is. And that's why Lindsey Graham's sister is running for his seat, because historically, when a person dies, either the spouse or a member of the family with the same name runs, they historically have the greatest chance of getting elected to continue the legacy that was started before. And I think that's what we're going to see in her case, that she's going to pick up the gauntlet for him. And, South Carolina, business as usual, because Tim Scott certainly doesn't represent anybody. He might be of our color, but he's certainly not our kind in terms of his ability to kiss up to Trump, which is just unbelievable.
Well, I applaud Tim Scott. And the reason why I applaud Tim Scott is because as off base, off focus, off direction that he is, in a travesty to the American population, he still stays the course, even though he knows he's on a sinking ship that doesn't want him to do anything else but be a face person, but they don't invite you to the table and don't want nothing really to do to you until they need what they call the black face. I think at this moment, we literally, Dr. Warren, have to consistently say to the base that is not voting, you know what I'm saying? And this is a big thing for me, because we talk about the problems, we do the protests, we write all this stuff. We got a lot to say on social media, but when it comes down to one thing that we know that can have a direct effect, and that is one person, one vote, and if enough of us come together, we can turn the tide. So my question is to all those that are not voting, is it because you refuse to turn the tide because you want to see us lose?
No, that's not really the issue with them, Dr. Thompson. Here's the scenario. You see, people who don't know their history will go in any direction. Mm-hmm. There's an old saying that if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. Yeah. We all know that saying. Okay. Most of us don't go back. That's why I keep making it a teaching experience. In 1957, when Martin Luther King spoke to those clergy people in May in Washington, D.C., with his Give Us the Vote speech, and that speech was far more important than the I Have a Dream on the Mall, because he says that if you give us the vote, we'll elect the people of character, the judges and the legislators and the people who will make the right decisions. Well, we got the vote and we squandered it, and we let the vote go, and we didn't move to elect those people. Most of us don't even understand the term poll tax. And a poll tax was a tax that was put in place to ensure that sharecroppers, minorities, and people without wealth would not vote. And if we could keep them from voting by having you pay an amount of money in order to be able to vote, then we could maintain control of the vote. Because even the presidential election, most of us did not realize that the Electoral College was a backdoor piece to ensure that folks in power and influence elected the president in spite of whatever the numbers might be in the popular vote.
Mhm.
And so America has been built on hypocrisy with the idea that you're going to have a voice and you can have input. The mechanism is there for you, but the education process going to civics in our schools has ensured that by the time you finish school, you don't know anything about the political process. And so whatever you know about voting, you don't take seriously. Now let's move.
Well, let me. There was someone that actually came in and put something up here. Let me put it up here. It says, "What about educating our youth and exciting their voices in the future? Make a focus on our juniors and seniors in high school." Yeah.
Well, I tell you, it would be nice if we could. I think by the time we get to juniors and seniors, it's really too late. If you look at our schools, I remember earlier this week there was a program on that showed a summer camp with some kids learning how to write cursor. And when you think about it, kids are no longer taught how to even sign their name.
Mhm.
And to hear the media people who were covering the story talk about they could write their names, but they weren't sure what else they could write. Now, we learned to write cursor in the third grade. Some of us who are older remember we had that paper with the three big lines on it.
Mhm.
And we used all three. We went from the bottom line up to the top line. But when we had to do a connection, we looped through the middle line. And so we learned to use the middle line for lowercase writing coming up to that line. And so we learned to write. So, how are we going to teach politics to a group of people who don't even know how to write? We don't teach the Constitution. We don't teach the government. Do you know when I was in school, sixth grade, we had to be able to draw a map of the United States that was empty and fill in each state in terms of drawing it and naming it. We had to know the capital of each state. We got people today have no idea. I've seen polls on television where they ask people, "Well, what's the capital of Florida?" And they say Miami. They have no idea Tallahassee. What's the capital of California? They say Los Angeles instead of Sacramento. And so you got all of these scenarios that have been set up intentionally from the standpoint that the less you know, the less threat you possibly be. Now, I was about to share with you, in contrast, if you go over to Great Britain, for instance, the monarchy, the parliamentary scenario, you still have the queen and the king as a figurehead, but the king appoints a prime minister, and the prime minister is only good as long as he can count so many votes in terms of the parties, whether it's the Labor Party or the Conservatives or whatever. And so our party system was not written into the Constitution. Democrats and Republicans were not. But now the party system controls what we're doing. And I saw a very interesting statistic today. They were doing a poll looking at 2028. And guess who they say is the leading possible candidate in terms of poll numbers?
Well, Dr. Warren, enlighten us.
OAC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. She polled higher than Kamala Harris. She polled higher than Gavin Newsom. She's polling high because she is considered a progressive. And as a progressive, that people want the change and they want the younger change and they want to get rid of the old folks who don't know how to make things happen.
Mhm.
And so I, very patiently go out the pasture when you show me the replacement. But right now, we got a whole bunch of people, even in this city, as you and I have worked with young folks, they all in a hurry. They don't want to hear anything about yesterday, but they don't know where the hell they're going today. And they sure ain't prepared for tomorrow.
Yeah,
Okay.
and one of the hardships about it, and I always say this, and growing up, I remember a lot of our seniors would say, "Hey, these young people don't want to listen to us." But I thank God, and I'm gonna say for the remnant. I still believe that there's still a remnant of young people and people that really, really want to move forward. And if we just make it on the broken pieces, if we just make it on the remnant, I think that we'll be okay. But we have to consistently try to get it. And I say that, Dr. Warren, because if that was not true, then we might as well shut the Voice and Viewpoint down, because every week is an education. Every week is guiding them and directing them. And I think if we get more people tuned in to reading and studying, we're gonna see a tide turn.
Well, I wouldn't think of no circumstances where we might as well shut the voice down. I won't go down that road at all. But I do know, and history is consistent. And Frantz Fanon, black psychologist, French, um, he wrote The Wretched of the Earth. And I've often quoted this idea that he put forth, that if you have a person on the ground and their face is turned sideways and your boots on their face, as long as they can breathe, a lot of folks will not struggle. But when you position their nose in the dirt in their mouth and put your foot on the back of the head, now they either struggle to breathe or they die. And so history has shown that people get united when they have a common interest. I believe that's why God allowed the Hebrew people to go into captivity in Israel, because the slavery taught them to come together and depend on each other. We depended on each other coming out of slavery. We depended on each other all through Jim Crow. But once we got all of our civil rights and everything, and we could go wherever we wanted to, then we broke away. We let our businesses go under and collapse. We didn't reach back. We no longer were doing each one, reach one, teach one. And you and I noticed here in San Diego that 30 years ago, when we had rites of passage and people working with young folks, young men in particular, to ensure that they grew up with character, that those people are gone. And so this is not a pounce on folks, because there's a young man, I can't think of his name right now, but he is a psychologist at San Diego State. And I remember when we met him, he told us that his mother used to bring him to Black Men United when we started some 20 years ago.
That wasn't Frank Smith, was it?
No. And so he took in what was happening. In those days, if a mother had a problem with the son and she was a single parent and she couldn't handle him, she brought him to us. And we took them in the back and had a conversation with them, and they got straight because they knew we were going to stay on them and monitor them. Okay.
When Dr. Warren, there's a comment that says, are we all left behind then because some of us can't write in cursive? We are all lost. One of the things that I want to say to everybody is simply the resurgence of yesteryear. Before it was like, you don't need to write in cursive anymore. And now we're seeing the resurgence that there was a discipline in a style and a class of learning how to write in cursive. So what was seen as passe now is starting to be brought back as a necessity for growth. And I look at the same way when I look at music. Music, we got rid of the LPs, the 45s. We went to CDs, and we went to MP3 players, and now everything is on an app. But now, what are they doing?
Well, I still got LPs. Yeah. I still got
and everybody's
turntables.
Going back to that now.
Yeah, I still got 2 or 3 turntables and speakers in the whole bit. Amplifier, got all of that. Yeah. And I even have one unit in my office that has both the LP, cassette, and CDs that can play all 3 of those things.
And looks
together.
Vintage.
Yeah, and it does look vintage. But the key thing here is, no, you don't have to write cursor. I'm mentioning that as an example. We have arrived at the point in time where we can learn anything now that we want to learn, almost self-teach. You can go to YouTube and pull up a program on anything that you want to learn, from playing the piano to guitar to playing chess to, making ice cream to using a washboard for an instrument. Whatever you want. All you have to have is the discipline to discipline yourself, to apply yourself, to get there and to do it. Same thing with languages. So our big flaw is that we have gotten so caught up in freedom, what we think is freedom, that we just kind of slide off the reservation. I keep sharing this story because it's so important that absolute freedom kills. Okay. And I remember in the service, the chaplain, they gave that sermon that Sunday morning when I'm standing in the mud up to my ankles and it's raining and he's in the back of a truck and I got a rifle on my shoulder and he's telling us that, to be totally free from anything is to die. Uh, you cut flowers, the flowers will die. You pull a tree up, the tree will die. Roots have to be anchored to something. And we as people have to be anchored to our roots. And that's why there's been an effort to block that anchorage from the day the first slave ships came here. Because what did we find? When they found two people that spoke the same language, they separated them. It's almost like going back in the Bible when the Tower of Babel was built by Nimrod and his crowd. Okay, so uh, we have to want beyond our immediate need and gratification. We have to be concerned about what comes after us, and that's so important.
Mhm.
And we're not there yet, and we aren't going to get there unless we start talking about it and teaching it.
Mhm.
And our pastors are responsible too, because many of them are not teaching. If they were teaching the word, the whole pattern will follow with the word. They're not teaching. They're raising money and telling Bible stories and doing everything except thus saith the Lord in terms of what the word. And of course, I'm free of any denomination, so I can speak freely about them. They can't threaten to pull my license and all that crazy stuff that they do. And I'm just glad Jesus didn't have to go through that to minister, because all of this man-made rule making is not helping us move forward in terms of where we need to go.
Amen. And that's one of the things that I do agree with you. There are a lot of roadblocks that have been placed in our ways, and many of those roadblocks have been brought about by our own selves and things that we have let held us down and hold us hostage. I think one of the most important things that we have to look at is that a lot of people are looking for the answers. How do we get there? How do we get there? How do we turn the tide? How do we fix what seems to be very broken? And one of the things that I say to people all the time is simply that, first of all, we have to talk about responsibility. We as in my generation, I'm not going to talk about the generation before me or the generation that's been after me. I'm talking about in my generation. I personally believe that we have been so busy trying to make it that our children don't have to quote unquote suffer or quote unquote go through the same plight that we had to go through, that we literally have basically declawed them and made them ineffective in the real world because they don't know what struggle looks like. They don't know what it means to not get your instantaneous thing right there.
Yeah.
And so because of that, now we're in generations of people that, my mama forced me to go to church, so I'm not going to go to force you. And there's a responsibility, I think, that we have to take and move forward.
Yeah, there is responsibility that we take, Dr. Thompson, but we don't stop there. We know my generation before your generation, we tried to make it easier because we didn't want it to be as difficult for us, for you as it was for us. Okay. But history has shown that, there has to be struggle and you can't give too much to folks. And you can't make people be concerned beyond themselves. You see, if you don't get this foundation done by the time they're 4 years old, you're going to really miss the window. And I'm watching people with little kids. The kids are pouting in the store, their parents begging them to come here. And they got their lip out and they running around. Somebody need to snatch them up and knock the hell out of them a couple of times. They'll get the message and get straight. But that's child abuse, and you can't do this, and you can't hit them, and then it's being reinforced by television. How many programs you see with teenagers? They argue with their parents. They go slam the door in their room. That ain't your room. That's your parents' room. You don't pay no bills for that house. You live there as a guest, and they let you do all of that. Then I've had them come to me after they get into their teens. Oh, what can I do? It's too late. You should have done it beforehand when you were letting them get away with everything, and now you can't do it. Okay, it's a problem,
Mhm.
and it doesn't have to be that way. We can still we there's still time to salvage some. And
Yeah.
I keep saying, I want to say this every week. There are a lot of good young people out here doing things. I don't want to take anything from them because we give so much attention to the ones that are the problem. But part of the reason we do that is we're trying to save their lives. Because if they carry the same foolishness out there on the streets, we know they're gonna end up dead,
Mhm.
one way or the other. Uh, you're gonna end up with the drugs. You're gonna end up with the cops. You're gonna end up with somebody shooting you. You're gonna end up, and you don't have to go down that road,
Mhm.
okay? But the parents wouldn't take the time themselves, and now they're getting the results of it, and it's gonna be even worse, Dr. Thompson, in about 20 years, because those parents are going to be seniors. Some of us will be gone. There will be nobody to take care of them. They haven't raised their kids with any sense of accountability or responsibility for them. And so they really won't care what happened to them. And so the Bible says you reap what you sow.
You know, Dr. Warren, some 30 years ago, I wrote a poem entitled "If I Knew Then What I Know Now." You know, and if I was to rewrite it today, I would say, "If I knew then what I know right now." And one of the things that we're always trying to tell young people is that, you know, we're not trying to stop you from having fun. We're not trying to stop you from living your best life. What we're trying to stop you from doing is repeating the same mistakes that we have done. They say that, you know, if you ever want to see somebody that's foolish, is that for them to not know their history and keep repeating the same thing over and over. And I think in this time, in this season, we really have to not only challenge the young people, but even the parents. Like you said, it's not too late right now. It's not too late to say, look, you know, we're going to have family dinner once a month. You know, it might not be every week, but let's get something on the books right now. Let's get some stability in, and then also the whole thing about civic engagement. You know, it's not enough just to say I went to a march. You know what I'm saying? Let's get actively involved in the things that we need to do. Let's do, you know, because you give the voice and viewpoint to all these churches, right? And it's normally the older people and some of the young adults that are taking it. But you know, let's get our young people reading and help them to see what is happening in their city and why it's important for the hardship of the hard copy of a newspaper.
Well, I was talking to someone who is uh, engaged in school boards pursuit, and I like to share with people that when school boards were created, they were created to ensure that the culture and mores of the community were passed on to the children as well as the education that they were getting. And so we've gotten away from that. Uh, we've gotten away from overcrowded schools so that all these new schools we have as a result of bonds, by the time they got them built, the kids were gone. And so we don't have as many. So we have a whole bunch of factors at work. But you cannot expect parents to teach their children what they have not mastered themselves.
Mhm.
And we still have adult parents who could come to a meeting, who could spend some time doing something to help. And let's be clear, there are so many people in our community to do so. When I look at the food banks, number one, or Feeding San Diego, or if I look at Bethel Church on Friday, where the volunteers are out there giving away food to hundreds of people, we're out there giving papers to folks so that they can read and keep up with the community. Uh, there is work being done, but it could be much better if we voted.
Mhm.
Okay, and so that's the key. We got to re-educate people, and we do that in part by showing them the consequences of what happened to people who wanted to vote and were blocked. Show them a movie like Miss Jane Pittman, okay, and how they didn't want that to happen, or the one where Oprah Winfrey plays the part of the lady that went to register to vote and they ended up dragging her out and locking her up. Sit down and explain to them the movie The Help, where they were cleaning white folks' houses and doing. My mother did that job for years, $1 an hour, 8 hours a day, and 40 cents bus fare. And here we are now. What's the minimum wage in California is $17 an hour.
Mhm.
There's still so many places in the country. It's still only $7
Mhm.
and 50 cents. And so we got a disparity in terms of what's going on. But the big thing I want to stress here is that for every dollar that is cut from us by a president like Trump and his administration, we have the capacity among ourselves to replace those programs just by reaching into our pockets and redirecting our priorities.
Mhm.
And those are the things that's going to bring voting back to significance, because now you have something that you can connect with, that you can see the benefit of, and you can be more critical of the people that you are going to vote for and not just checking names because they show up.
Now, one of the questions in a roundabout way is that for those kids that don't have viable parents or parents that are really engaged, what about the power of the village? Is the village still intact, or is just a concept now?
You know, Dr. Thompson, anybody out there with a single parent, I don't want you having a pity party or feeling bad. We got people in this community who were raised almost without parents in foster situations and stuff, who had personal commitments that they were going to succeed in spite of. People who are teaching today, people who have gone all the way through the system, they have their PhDs, they're reaching back and doing others. There, you cannot have look for an excuse. Look for a manner in which you can serve. And when you find out how to be of service, then you'll get the return on it, and not just looking for yourself. That's the major question. Find a way to help somebody else, and you in turn will be helped.
Very, very powerful statement. I heard a pastor recently said, "You will find that support in your doing." And so many times we're waiting for the support to come instead of activating our doing, and the support will come our way. I'll give you a prime example. Had a young person that was in her doing, and she was telling all the things that were going on, but she was still in her doing. And the person in the organization that could help her came about in her doing, and everything that she was struggling with by her doing and saying and speaking, those things came to pass, and the community came around her, and we see great growth. And so I think that in this time, this season, I think, Dr. Warren, we're really talking about we don't have time to be pitiful. We don't have time to be in the woe is me spirit. We don't have time to worry about being a cancellation culture. We have to get about if we don't, who will? And if we don't, then we will find ourselves in worse shape than we've ever been in life, and we will be closer to slavery than we have ever been in our life.
Or we won't be as close as we're going to be if we don't change something. You know, I like for people to remember these words. We make life by what we get. I'm sorry, we make a living by what we get, and we make a life by what we give. All right. And so I'm always stressing that part because, Longfellow talked about how lives of great men remind us that we can be sublime, leaving behind us footprints in the sands of time. And so the question is, uh, what have you given? What are you doing? If you were finding you were going to die tomorrow, have you done anything significant? Have you done anything other than look out for yourself? You know, I get over the years all kinds of obits that come to the paper for people who passed on in community, and this one really played cards well, and that one was a great fisherman, and this one was a great cook, and this one was a great friend. They played cards and all of those kind of things. But none of those things are going to open the pearly gates for you. Um, he left us very basic instructions in terms of what we should do and how we should be helping people. And it's challenging in a world where people want to fight, they want to cuss you out, they want to arouse you and get you angry and upset. and you want to bite the bait as opposed to what can we do. You and I, Dr. Thompson, we have a tremendous challenge because I one time thought that if you took all of the people in San Diego County that are really doing something, Black folks that are really doing something and making a difference, it'd be less than 100 of us, less than 100 out of all the people here, because so many people have just been programmed to do what you can, get what you can, and don't worry about anybody else. And that's a very poor commentary to look like that. And I think we ought to look at Ukraine as an example because Russia thought that Ukraine was going to roll over. They put all the troops there and everything 4 years ago, and we're just going to go and get this over in a hurry. But the people of Ukraine band together and say, no, you won't. And that's all it does is take us coming together. Do you realize that we shut our wallets up here in San Diego, we would become the most respected people in this county? We ain't got to say a word. All we have to do is just shut our wallets and only buy what we need and not what we want. Popeyes was shut down. McDonald's would have a whole bunch of fire sales. Jack in the Box would really be popping about the box. Okay. And, Taco Bell would have some problems and everybody would be in the fast food chain upset. And let's not even talk about if we stayed out of Walmart. And we already supposed to stay out of Target, but they keep sucking us back in there, telling us how much they giving, and if we ain't in Targets, we in Marshall, but Target owns Marshall, So
well, let's have a real conversation in a strategic planning session, Dr. Warren. If we were to say, this San Diego, if we were to say that we're going to hold our money from those establishments, how long do you think it would take for one, for them to feel it, and two, for them to be willing to make change?
Well, okay, let me just say this. I'm gonna play the lawyer for a moment. I'm not telling anyone to boycott anyone. All right. I'm not, I don't even use that term. I'm just saying that you have something to say about how you spend your dollars and what you buy with your dollars and how your dollars have changed. When I was a young man, I used to smoke. And when I was smoking, cigarettes were 25 cents a pack. And you could buy a carton for $2.50. Okay. But when cigarettes went to 50 cents a pack, I stopped smoking. I said, oh, that's ridiculous. And now I can't even imagine. I see people on the corner with a homeless sign, puffing away on a cigarette, but they want money. And I know the cigarettes cost at least $10, $12 a pack. So you can't be but so bad off if you got that, right?
It was not. I went into the store the other day just to get my tank filled up. And the man said, oh, I'll take 3 packs of the menthols.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, and when the man came back and said $50, I thought, wait a minute, he only got 3 packs. And he spent $50 for 3 packs of cigarettes. I'm like, oh, I would immediately had stopped when it got that high.
Stop smoking, you give yourself a pay raise. And not to mention the health benefits, you see.
Exactly.
But let's not just put it on the smoking because, if you walk in this convenience store, 7-Eleven, wherever, all these places, you got rows and rows of all kinds of Fritos and chips. All that stuff none of it is healthy for you. None of it is healthy. Now they got pizza by the slice and the hot dogs, and then you just eating stuff to satisfy hunger while you're still tearing the temple down. And pretty soon you're going to be in bad shape. Okay, so all we have to do is just impose some discipline on ourselves. We will feel better. Put some prayer in there with it. The days will go a little different. And we don't have to end our days in stress because stress also kills us. And we're worrying about how am I going to make it and how can I pay this and how can I pay that? And I tell people, the answer's in the scriptures, okay? Okay. Philippians say, my God shall supply all my needs exceedingly abundantly according to his riches and glory through Christ Jesus. Well, that's just not a statement. That's a fact. And we learn when we start applying the word, things can change. Okay. But Sunday, churches are empty. few and few people bother to go. You ask somebody to go to church, it's like asking them to go to an Amway meeting and say, no, I don't want to go, and the churches are changing the word to market to get people there so they can raise money. That's not intended. That's not the purpose. The purpose is to give the word and let the word happen. And I mention that because if you look over our history, from coming out of Jim Crow, from coming out of slavery, everything we came out of was a prayerful journey with people walking according as much as they could to the word to make a difference, not just for them, but for those of us who came after them. Mm-hmm. And that's what we have to get back to, being concerned about those that come after us.
And Dr. Warren, I agree with you 100%. The Bible says that we're supposed to leave an inheritance for our children's children. So not just for our children, but our children's children, meaning that we have to look well beyond after we are gone, what is left behind. And so many times we're so busy consuming now that we have nothing left to give. And even, I had a relative that said, look, don't expect an inheritance from me because I'm going to use everything before I get out of here. And guess what? He left 90% of it still here.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And the thing about it is that when we are building, we should build not only for the present, but for the future. And I also looking back at the past, because it's important that we don't forget our elders and our community people that have literally helped us get to where we're at. Just recently, I was working with a minister and someone said, do you go to his church? And I said, no, but he is a minister I grew up with. And so growing up with him, it didn't matter if I went to his church or not. When I'm there, I'm still of a service to that person. It doesn't matter if that person is your grandfather or your uncle. If you see an elderly person that is trying to get across the street or might just need help to get up, it is our duty to go and assist them because they've assisted so many of us.
Well, and there are a lot of people out there, Dr. Thompson, in fairness, who do just that. And I want to salute them. Several weeks ago when I was in the midst of acute sciatic attack, I got out of my car at a 7-Eleven, and I was standing there for a moment waiting for someone that I was going to meet. And a gentleman pulled up in his car and he got out and he rushed over to me and he said, "Sir, are you okay?" Because he thought maybe either I had Alzheimer's or what. I would say, "Well, I'm fine. Thank you for asking, but I'm just stretching, But there are people that care. And you see an accident, there are people who rush to that accident to see what they can do to help, as opposed to the looky-loos that just want to drive by and until it's their turn.
Well, no, not just drive by, but pull out their cameras.
Yeah.
See if they get a first report.
Yeah. That's horrible.
Yeah.
That's horrible. Well, I hope that we keep having these discussions. I don't want to depress you, but we're going to keep talking about voting because it's so crucial. And this state is so crucial to the salvation of democracy in America as we know it. And it's so crucial that we don't allow this lone Republican Hilton running in California to trick all of us staying at home and let a handful of conservative Republicans make him governor of this state. We can't allow that to happen. Okay, whatever our problems were with Becerra, we need to rally behind him if it's going to give us a democratic hope to make that happen. We need to look at who's running. We're going to focus locally on some of the propositions. We're going to look at the Board of Supervisors trying to extend their term and all the things that they're doing. It's so much going on, and we're not going to ignore it. We're going to explore it. We're going to explore it here. We're going to lay it out there. And we need to hear from you as we do so. If you have questions, I'm going to be conducting almost on a weekly basis some sessions at the Voice and Viewpoint. I'm going to pick the day of the evening where we're going to get together and discuss the Constitution and political issues and questions that you might have had, because people have asked me to do this. And even though I'm going to put it on a podcast, I really want it to be in person, because that which we make an earnest contribution toward, we appreciate. And so many of us just want to sit at home and flip a channel. Now, I need you to care enough to get up and come out and physically be there, like we did before, Dr. Thompson, when we did the ballot. before the primary, and people came and we were able to walk through each name and how the whole thing worked to answer questions. We don't want to wait to the last minute. And we at The Voice are not waiting on the register of voters because their people did so very little with us, nor are we waiting on the NAACP because someone has given the national NAACP $20 million to reach out for voting, and they're going to put it in red states, which means we won't get any money to help get folks to the polls here. So it's going to be up to us. If it's going to be, it's up to me. And we can make it happen without their dollars. And that's what I want to see take place.
And yeah, and that's it, Dr. Warren. We have to have put our own value on our lifestyle. We have to put our own value on the value of voting. But more than anything else, you have a voice, and your voice deserves to be heard. And being quiet, being complaining, and all the other things does not bring us a solution. So we're going to keep on encouraging you to know that you are valuable, you are needed, and we need not just your vote, but we need your energy, we need your heart, and we need your commitment. And then also begin to spread the word. Begin to spread the word. I'm so excited about the energy that is taking place with the San Diego Voice and Viewpoint, young writers, and opportunities that you're giving to so many up and coming young people to get into the media field and to get into the newspaper game and literally being able to sit with the master. So I appreciate what you're doing for the young people, Dr. Warren, and for the time that you spend educating through podcasts as well as this show. So we want to keep up the good work, and I want to let you have the final words, Doc.
Well, we're here to answer your questions. We're here to get you motivated. We need to plan how we're going to help get people to the polls, absentee ballots, a whole bit. And if you have the interest, we'll make the time to answer your questions and see if we can help. Until then, read and support us, get involved. Make sure the people you do business with us. That's the only way we can give back and give more people jobs. So just don't give your money to folks who are not giving you something in return. And doing business with us is one of the most visible returns you can see, both with GOD Radio and Voice and Viewpoint. Thank you so much.
Y'all be blessed.